Philological problem with proto-language is solved. Part 2. As for the proto-language based on all arguments presented in Part 1, at some point it was safe to assume that the first language, or as it is also called the world language, is the language of images. The course of our further arguments as to where to find this proto-language was simple. Knowledge in linguistics helped us. Namely, we knew that all languages of the world are divided into two categories, alphabetic and hieroglyphic. With alphabetic languages everything was clear as a day to us. The word apple in English, Russian, Italian, or Arabic are all the same thing. Namely, no one knows what apple this is specifically, so all that is left is a guessing game. Meanwhile, hieroglyphic languages are a completely different matter. In hieroglyphic languages, there are specifics behind every word presented by a hieroglyph. In other words, there is a specific image, for example, such and such apple, such and such mushroom, and so on. This property is inherent in hieroglyphic languages and, in our opinion, the answer to the question where to find the proto-language lies in this property, of course, among hieroglyphic languages. Which language is it exactly? Of course, Chinese. Why? Since this book is not only for linguists, allow us, as the saying goes, to refresh your memory. Originally the term hieroglyph was used in relation to the ancient Egyptian writing. But since the hieroglyphic language has long been lost in Egypt and was replaced by the Arabic script, then this means that the only hieroglyphic language that survived is the Chinese language. After all, as it is known, other hieroglyphic languages that exist today, for example, Japanese and Korean, are derived from Chinese hieroglyphic writing. So, the answer to the question of where to look for the proto-language was literally on the surface. It is the Chinese language. The Chinese language specifically is that first language, proto-human language, world language. Additional confirmation of this conclusion for us was in the origin of the word hieroglyph itself. It consists of two parts. Eros sacred dan glypho I cut out, I carve, which translates from the ancient Greek as sacred inscriptions. This definition was fully confirmed by our long-term studies of ancient Chinese literary monuments and, at some point, it even allowed us to hypothesize that the Chinese language is nothing other than the language of the gods. To put it more precisely, the language of those who created us, humans. What is so remarkable about the Chinese language, from our point of view? Many things, if we take into account our more than 40 years of experience in researching such ancient Chinese texts as, for example, Shanhai Jing, which turned out to be nothing other than the catalogue of human population, or I Ching and Dao Te Ching, which turned out to be commentaries to this catalogue. However, you can learn more about this on our website. Here we are not discussing these unique ancient Chinese sources of knowledge, we mention them only to make it clear that we are familiar with the Chinese language firsthand and that the Chinese language is not only the oldest that survived in our civilization, but also really does correspond to the status of sacred inscriptions. Consider a specific example. It is specifically the work with ancient Chinese literary monuments, the study of hieroglyphs, including very old ones, and their decryption using a special technology which today provide us with the opportunity to uncover the structure of psyche of any person. That is, to find out which qualities of personality, peculiarities, functioning and talents were given to a person by nature from birth. How he or she lives, what he or she seeks and by what methods achieves his or her goals, and how to manage his or her behavior and even state of health. And this is far from everything that study of Chinese hieroglyphics gives us as researchers. Since we finally found the proto-language, according to rules accepted in science, we should demonstrate and justify the practical value of this discovery. There is nothing yesir. The main value of that we found the proto-language is in that there is a specific image behind each word in this language, even the simplest one. The same can be stated about relatively complex, so-called philosophical concepts. While conducting deep studies of Chinese hieroglyphics using a special technology, it was not difficult for us to notice that behind each character, behind each of its fragments, is a very definitive meaning of the given word. And there is only one meaning, without any ambiguities. Moreover, images behind Chinese characters are segments by which most diverse recipes are recorded in the language. In other words, if you want to know what love or justice really are, take a look in the Chinese language dictionary. And you will also get a recipe for how to be, for example, fair, loved, and how to love from there. Although, of course, in order to extract these meanings of words and recipes, it is necessary to have the special technology of decryption of Chinese hieroglyphics that we use. Technology of decryption of archaic images, by which information in psyche of Homo sapiens is recorded, was created by researcher, sinologist Andrei Davidov, the author of Scientific Discovery of the Catalogue of Human Population in the early 80s of the 20th century. This technology finally made it possible to obtain objective, complete, and reliable information from the unconscious sphere of Homo sapiens. It is very different from all pre-existing and currently used psychodiagnostic methods and technologies of penetration into the unconscious sphere of a person in results that a researcher obtains. Since results of decryption of Shan Hai Jing have nothing to do with manifestations of anyone's subjectivity, fantasies, assumptions, the technology of obtaining information from the unconscious sphere of Homo sapiens, which was created by Andrei Davidov, completely excludes any inclusion of subjective interpretations, and, in essence, is a dry translation from the language of archaic images from the ancient manuscript catalogue of mountains, and sees into the language of modern psychological description of an individual. This technology provides objective and very detailed information about any individual of interest. What are the qualities and properties of his personality, his life algorithms, functioning, abilities, desires and goals, hidden motivational springs, etc. This became possible only because archaic images listed in Catalogue of Mountains and Seas are that foundation, cornerstone, on the basis of which Homo sapiens were created and function. However, we will discuss this in more detail some other time. Since the format of this book is not intended to provide details about this technology, in our opinion, the main value of the proto-language is that its study provides semantic specifics and specific recipes, which cannot be found anywhere else in our civilization, neither in philosophy, nor in psychology, sociology, anthropology, linguistics, or elsewhere. Life recipes obtained from deep study and analysis of Chinese hieroglyphics are completely different than those offered by philosophers, psychologists, mystics, or religious figures of various directions. Decomposition and analysis of Chinese hieroglyphics provides a specific recipe, and it is the only one for each situation. And, if you apply this recipe on practice and apply it exactly, without changing it in any way, then the output will be exactly the result that you wanted to get.